What's up, family? Welcome back to my channel, The Mysterious Black Bandit. Before we get started, let me thank every single one of you guys for your support and love. It really means a lot to me, guys, and this channel. All right, before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button for me and the algorithm. And if you haven't already, subscribe to your boy and join the Black Bandit family. Once you've done that, go ahead and grab you a snack and sit back and enjoy the video. Today, we'll be talking about the Boogeyman of Atlanta, Wayne Bertram Williams. Wayne Williams was born on May 27, 1958, and was raised in Dixie Hill neighborhood of Southwest Atlanta, Georgia. He was the only child to his mother, Faye Williams, and his father, Homer Williams, who both were school teachers. Growing up, Wayne was considered to be a very bright kid that excelled in class, with his teachers and classmates describing him as a virtual genius. At a young age, Wayne was fascinated how the voices came out of the radio speaker, and this sparked his interest in electronics. By the age of 11, he and two other schoolmates had hustled up enough money to purchase an oscillator, which was a radio frequency generator. Wayne and his friends constructed their own carrier current radio station in the basement of his parents' home on Penelope Road, and soon began running a station which could only be heard by those living within the block. Now, this captured a lot of attention and even earned him a brief shine of fame, as Jet Magazine ran a picture of him seated at the control board of his station. By 1976, Wayne graduated from Douglas High School and went on to enroll in Georgia State University. But he didn't last for long. He ended up only staying for a year or so before he dropped out to pursue his dreams as an entrepreneur. At first, he dabbled a little bit as a freelance photographer, since his father already did this on the side as a contracted photographer for the Atlanta Daily World. Soon after this, he wanted to be a producer, so he would go around scouting and handing out flyers to any local aspiring teenage rapper. Now, his healthy career ambition, which had him working all throughout the day and night, was also very pricey. It was said that his parents funded everything for him, which cost them a ton of money and eventually led them to file bankruptcy. Now, this is when some believed he started to lose direction, and despite his intelligence, he started to show signs of trouble. He was known in the community to be a notorious liar that often fabricated his stories and exaggerated his accomplishments. Some people in the neighborhood thought that he was a policeman because of the way he spoke and acted, and on top of that, he even carried his own badge. Then he would approach kids in an official-looking vehicle and tell them to get off the street or he would lock them up. Now, between the years 1979 and 1981, there were about 29 murders in the Atlanta area that seemed to have some kind of connection. Most of the victims were young boys that ranged between 7 and 17 years old, and all were African Americans. On July 28, 1979, a woman that was walking came across two African-American bodies hidden under some bushes at the side of the road. One was 14-year-old Edward Hope Smith, who had been reported missing a week before, and he had been shot in the head with a .22 caliber. Then the second was 13-year-old Alfred Evans, who had been reported missing 3 days before, and he was murdered by suffocation. This discovery would mark the first of many more killings in Atlanta, Georgia. By late September of that same year, another 14-year-old boy whose name was Milton Harvey was found deceased. Then at the end of the year, Yusuf Bell had been strangled, and Angel Lanier, who was tied to a tree with her hands bundled behind her back and also strangled, had been discovered. Now, when two more bodies continued to trend into the spring of 1980, it was finally decided they had a serial killer on the loose, but the police force wasn't doing too much about it. The community stated it took law enforcement way longer than usual to take this situation seriously. A lot of the black parents speculated that the reason for this is because the people that were coming up missing were mostly African Americans, but it was stated that they made it very hard for them to ignore. Parents stopped letting their kids go out to play, and others stopped sending their kids to school. But after 7-year-old LaTonya Wilson was kidnapped and reported missing from her home, a task force was finally put into place to investigate their mysterious deaths. Authorities searched all throughout Atlanta, questioning any and everybody, but every lead they thought they had on the serial killer case wasn't conclusive. The Atlanta mayor, Maynard Jackson, offered out a $100,000 reward for clues about the deaths, and even Muhammad Ali donated $400,000 to help find any of the missing children, with many more influential people following suit. By July 1980, 9 children had either came up missing or been found murdered, so the local police decided to reach out to the FBI for help. Both groups of authorities joined together and launched a major investigation, soon realizing that these kids were being strategically targeted, as the victims was often found in wooded areas within a small radius. As time went on, more and more black kids continued to disappear. But in April of 1981, the killer changed his MO. The bodies were now being dumped into the Chattahoochee River, and this allowed them to narrow down their search and stake out all 14 bridges that went across the river in the Atlanta area. By late May of 1981, many of the dead bodies linked to the case had been recovered without no true leads. But this wasn't for long. The morning of May 22nd, 1981, a surveillance team that was patrolling the James Jackson Parkway Bridge overheard a loud splash as if something had been thrown from the bridge into the river. Soon afterwards, a vehicle was exiting off the bridge that belonged to Wayne Williams. The police immediately jumped into their vehicles and rushed over and pulled him over. Once he stopped, the police asked him where he was going and why he was out so late. Then Wayne responded and told them that he was on his way to check on an address in a neighboring town to make sure he knew where it was ahead of an audition he had with a young singer named Cheryl Johnson, providing them with her phone number. Lacking probable cause, authorities eventually let him go, but one of the officers stated he saw something that looked like a cord on the floor in his back seat. And on top of that, the number and the audition he had turned out to be a lie. Then 2 days later, the new body of 27-year-old Nathaniel Cater, who had been missing for 4 days, was discovered close to where they heard that splash by the bridge. Once his body was taken in to medical examiners, they performed an autopsy on the body and it was ruled that this was another probable death by strangulation. Then after that, the body of 21-year-old Jimmy Ray Payne was also found nearby, which allowed the cops to build their case. Investigators started to dive a little deeper into Wayne's profile and soon learned he had previously been arrested for impersonating a police officer that year, his alibi was weak, and the murders had stopped once he became a suspect. On June 21st, 1981, almost a month after the 2 young men's bodies had been discovered, the police were finally able to arrest 29-year-old Wayne Williams for the murders of Nathaniel and Jimmy after leading the police surveillance team on a high-speed chase. On January 6, 1982, several months after his arrest, Wayne Williams' trial began in Fulton County. The prosecutor had matched several fibers from Williams' clothes, car, home, and family dog with the same fibers found on the 2 men. In addition to that, they used witness testimonies that placed Williams with several victims while they were alive and used his inconsistency about his whereabouts against him. One FBI profiler named John Douglas, who was a devoted serial killer and assassin analyst, claimed that the killer had to be black in order to get that close to other black kids, and blamed his many failures in life and lack of control as the reason for him committing all these murders. Now, throughout the whole trial, Wayne remained calm and confident, but when he took the stand in his own defense, he alienated the jury by becoming angry and combative. Once the prosecutor started focusing on Wayne's failures and his inconsistent statements during his cross-examination, he became very frustrated, questioning him about the scratches on his arm and face. He asked him, "Did you get those scratches from the victim you choked to death?" And this sent Wayne into a fierce rage. He started to accuse the prosecutor of programming the witnesses to make him out to be a killer, then called the FBI clumsy and goons. But the last statement he made shook the courtroom. Wayne sat up in his chair and looked around the room and spoke. "You want the real Wayne Williams? And you have got him right here." On February 27, 1982, after 12 hours of deliberation, Wayne Bethune-Williams was found guilty on 2 counts of murder for the death of Nathaniel Cater and Jimmy Payne, giving him 2 life sentences and sending him to Telfair State Prison to serve out his term. Now, although he was convicted for the rest of the murders, local authorities alleged that he was the killer and closed all the children's case. Now, of course, this left a lot of people skeptical and disappointed for the families that did not get a clear answer as to who committed these heinous crimes. One victim's brother stated that, "You mean nobody has an answer for the death of all these kids? We're not worth it is what you're telling me." Now, as of today, Wayne Williams has been locked up for several decades, but has consistently maintained his innocence. Over these years, he has sought out retrial after retrial, with his attorney arguing that law enforcement officials have covered up evidence of the involvement by the KKK to avoid a race war and the carbon fires that linked him to the crimes. Now, allegedly, a white supremacist named Charles T. Sanders was an early suspect before Williams, and one of Charles' former friends anonymously claimed that Charles took the credit for committing the murders with his brothers, and also he had the same breed of dog as Wayne. Now, back in those days, there were no DNA tests, so the strongest thing they could use was the fiber evidence, which was one of the first times they had ever used that sort of evidence in a court case. But in 2019, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms announced that she was reopening the case so that investigators could apply DNA technology to the evidence from the case to see if anything new can be determined. Of course, this is going to take some time since it was so long ago, but Wayne stated he is fully ready and willing to cooperate with new investigation to find the truth on what happened with the purpose of straightening up any lies and misconception of his unjust conviction. But despite all this, Wayne will be eligible for parole in November 2027. And that will bring this video to an end, my brothers and sisters. And listen up, we have to have a conversation about this with my family. To be honest with y'all, I didn't know anything about the white supremacy allegations, but after doing the research I did on this story, I don't know exactly how to feel. Both sides make great points when it comes to the KKK being a suspect, or back in those days, and Wayne also being a suspect. But regardless of what I think, I want to hear from y'all. Do y'all think Wayne Williams committed all those crimes? And also, if y'all lived in those areas during that time, once y'all found that there was a serial killer on the loose taking kids, did y'all stop them from going outside or going to school? Or were you not even worried about it? Let me know down in the comments on your experience. I would love to hear this. Thank you all so much for your support and love. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you hadn't already. I'm wishing you all a very prosperous and abundant day. And until next time, stay mysterious, my friends.